This is Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. It's Thursday, the 21st of March, 2024. Hello and welcome to today's edition of The Pulse. And coming up in this exciting Thursday afternoon, Speaker of Parliament, Alban Babin, didn't tell the truth. No injunction application has been made by any person in respect of the case against nominated ministers. That's the Attorney General's response to the Speaker of Parliament.
Because indeed it is true that a writ had been filed and served on me the day before. But it is certainly untrue and inaccurate for a contention to be made that the motion for injunction has been filed in the Dafiamapo case.
We'll hear from the Member of Parliament for South Dai Roxanne Dafiamapo, who insists the injunction was filed and duly served. Also coming up, striking basic and secondary school teachers ordered by the National Labour Commission to call off their strike and return to the classroom as their absence leaves learners without supervision and loitering around.
That's in the clubs because teachers are on strike. So we are just playing and doing whatever we need in the class. So we don't do anything important.
The reason why I'm playing is because my teacher, they are on strike.
The Chief Executive of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission joins me here for an exclusive discussion on the demands by NAT, NAGRAT, and CCT, and later, demands by civil society organizations on government to repeal law which allows mining in forests. We'll hear from NGO Topic Boss. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Digilu, affordable, safe sanitation for all. We're live on DSTV channel 421. Go TV 125, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and my Joy Online for more and these. We have a lot more issues to discuss this afternoon on the Pulse. Let's start from the Attorney General's office, who's also the Minister for Justice, Alfred Yeboah Damen. He's refuted claims that he received an interlocutory injunction in the case brought forth by the Member of Parliament for South Dai Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo. Mr. Damen clarified that he has not been served with any legal documents pertaining such court proceedings. Parliament on Wednesday, March 20th, halted the vetting process for the nomination of ministers and deputy ministers of state by President Akufo-Addo following an interlocutory injunction filed at the Supreme Court by the Member of Parliament, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamapo. In his closing remarks to the House before adjourning on Wednesday, Speaker of Parliament, Alban Babin, cited the lawsuit as the reason for the suspension of the vetting process, as it rendered Parliament incapable or unable to proceed with the nominations.
In the light of this process, the House is unable to continue to consider the nominations of His Excellency the President, to use the language of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, quote, in the spirit of upholding the rule of law, unquote, until after the determination of the application for interlocutory injunction by the Supreme Court. Honorable members, this is the precedent that is being set by His Excellency the President for all Ghanaians to follow. So any matter that comes before Parliament, any Ghanaian can issue a writ and follow it with an application for injunction. And that is enough to injunct Parliament from proceeding with the consideration of the business in the House.
So the Minority Leader, Dr. Kesel Atoforsen, backed the Speaker's decision.
Constitution of Ghana spells out in plain language when the President of the Republic of Ghana must do when Parliament passes a bill and present to His Excellency the President. The President must assent to the bill or must refuse to assent to the bill when it is presented to him as the President of the Republic. These are the only options, and in this case, there is no middle ground at all per the constitutional imperative. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also say that in the instance case of the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2024, President Akufo-Addo has taken a strange and alien position, which is unknown to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Given that Parliament has been injuncted in a matter of the President's nominee for the position of ministers and deputy ministers, it is obvious that this Honorable House is also unable and cannot approve those ministerial nominees His Excellency the President has also presented to Parliament. At this point, the President may have to be innovative, dynamic, and think out of the box by downsizing the size of his government. Let me say that merely piling on numbers by way of appointing ministers and deputy ministers does not signal to the people of Ghana that the President understands the seriousness of the mess that he and his government has created in our country.
And the Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin says the President did no wrong and was only following the dictates of the rule of law.
Mr. Speaker said that Mr. President was undermining democracy and that he should have resorted to the Constitution in making certain communications to the House. We in the majority beg to disagree on the position taken by him. If you carefully read the letter that was sent to Parliament, Mr. President limited himself to the processes before the courts. And the fact that Parliament itself, through an affidavit, adjoined issues. Parliament has filed an affidavit in opposition and is in court. In fact, Parliament is a party to the suit. So for us, we do not see how this would have to affect the proceedings of Parliament. In any event, Mr. Speaker has always deferred to the leadership of the House to guide him in the conduct of business. This morning, the leadership of the House sat together to discuss the various items to be taken. We have finished some of them. There were some that we were supposed to take, and we're told that Mr. Speaker would have to take the chair. It's very disappointing that after Mr. Speaker had made known his own views about the letter sent from the presidency to the clerk, he adjourned the House Synod without giving room for the leadership of the House to even comment.
Now, Parliament is on recess and it's unclear when they will be back. Now, this afternoon, the Attorney General says his checks at the court reviewed no indication that the interlocutory injunction was filed or has been filed. And this afternoon, we'll have him. He's on the show. He's going to tell us why and what he thinks about this and pass between the executive arm of government and the legislature. But parliamentary correspondent Kwaku Asante joins me here in the studio. Kwaku, welcome. So, I mean, what us through the AG's response that he gave the Speaker? What exactly is he saying?
So, Elton, this is continuously taking different twists by the day, and we are getting more and more information to inform the public in terms of what exactly is going on. So, Roxy Nelson Efemekpo has filed a writ in court, but has he filed a motion for injunction outside of the declaratory reliefs he's seeking, which one of them having to do with injunctions? So let me read to you what the Attorney General says.
Right.
And he's written a 2-pager letter to the Speaker of Parliament, slamming him for that decision he took yesterday, insisting that he had no basis in law and in fact to take that decision. It says, respectfully, I am aware of a statement you made in Parliament on 20th March in which you communicated the inability of the House to continue to consider the nominations of His Excellency the President. In furtherance of my role under Article 88 of the Constitution, and bearing in mind the constitutional responsibility for the conduct and defense of all civil proceedings against the state, including Parliament, I am constrained to draw your attention to some observations. 1. The action filed by Mr. Dafemekpo, Member of Parliament for Saudai, consists of a bare writ of summons. No statement of case in support of the writ has been filed as mandated by the Supreme Court Rule CI 16. It is thus correct to say, respectfully, that the suit is not properly constituted in accordance with Rule 43 of CI 16. And such an action will be struck out where a statement of case in support of the plaintiff writ is not filed within 14 days. It goes on to say that the plaintiff has not filed an application for interlocutory injunction seeking to restrain a president from proceeding with the approval of the names, and that is Parliament, as you say, or indeed any other interlocutory relief. Thus, there is nothing before the Supreme Court which may constitute a restraint or fetter on Parliament from proceeding with the approval of ministerial and deputy ministerial nominees presented to Parliament. It continues that while it is true that the relief stated on the writ filed on 18 March refers to the above and purports to seek the relief, it goes without saying that the same is not an application for interlocutory injunction. Every application for interlocutory relief in any of the Superior Court, as a stride, must be by motion, specifically filed in praying for the desired relief. In any event, it is pertinent to indicate that the substance of the Dafemekpo's suit is a challenge on the power of the President to relieve ministers serving in his government. It has no bearing on the approval of the ministers. In light of the foregoing, Parliament, in their respectful view of the Attorney General, has no inhibition in proceeding with the approval process for the ministerial and deputy ministerial nominees.
So this is coming from the Attorney General. In the last few hours, the lawyers for the Saudai MP, they provided what they consider to be evidence that they indeed filed the subsequent motions to give the Speaker the backing to do what exactly he did yesterday. But let's hear the Attorney General make the justification this afternoon when he spoke on the Super Bowl, when he spoke on the midday news with Amy Farpel on Joy FM.
I think that was a decision that was premised on false basis. Because indeed it is true that a writ had been filed and served on me the day before. But it is certainly untrue and inaccurate for a contention to be made that the motion for injunction has been filed in the Dafemekpo case. And I read the statement that was read by the Right Honourable Speaker in Parliament yesterday. And he firmly premised his conclusion on the pendency of a motion for interlocutory injunction that has been filed by Mr. Dafemekpo. And that is false. Because indeed, as far as I'm concerned, the only process that has been filed in that action is a bare writ of summons. It is not even accompanied by a statement of claim or case. Neither has there been filed an application for interlocutory injunction. So it's just a writ of someone that has been filed without more. And clearly, there was no basis. It is correct that in his writ of summons, he actually stated as one of the reliefs an order of interlocutory injunction. But that is inconsequential. It is not an application or a motion for interlocutory injunction. It has no effect whatsoever. It is not binding on anybody. I have formally conducted a search in the registry of the Supreme Court this morning. And I have the results of the search, and the results are quite clear.
What's the result of the search?
It's very important because you're asking whether. No, you're asking. The question was whether or what I make of the Speaker decision.
But once you've introduced the search, if you could just tell us what the search results was, just tell us that.
The search results was one. Yes, so I asked 3 questions from the Supreme Court registry. The first question was whether or not a certificate of case in support of the plaintiff's writ has to date been filed in accordance with the Supreme Court rules. And the answer was only the writ has been filed. Second question was whether or not an application for interlocutory injunction has been filed by the plaintiff hearing, and if so, when was it filed? The answer was a categorical no. The third question, whether or not the application for interlocutory injunction has been served on any of the parties to the suit, and if so, when, was also a categorical no. Indeed, the application for interlocutory injunction has not been filed, it cannot be served. So that's what I make of the decision. That really the Speaker's decision was, with all respect, regrettable. Perhaps it was misled by, I don't know, some people, maybe the plaintiff himself in the matter. So that decision he made did not have any genuine or factual basis.
But at least that's something that would also verify on that in terms of whether that rate had been served or for that matter, whether it happened. We will check on that as well.
Yes, but these are the results of a formal search I conducted, and I can forward it to you.
Okay.
And I'm saying that, yes, the rate has been filed and served, but that is all.
Okay.
There has not been a filing of an application for interlocutory injunction. Neither has there been even the filing of a certificate of case to support the rate. And it is very important because, as far as I'm concerned, a writ without a certificate of case is actually, it means the action is not properly constituted. The action is fully constituted, and even the basis for the action is disclosed by the certificate of case. So clearly, no one can even ascertain the basis for Mr. Dafemapo's action. And that is why I find it very, very much unfortunate for the Speaker to have permitted his decision on the mere filing of this writ of summons. Okay. And it's also quite instructive to note that he actually alluded to a motion for interlocutory injunction when there was none. At least as at this morning, the search was filed at 9:05 a.m. The results were delivered at 9:42 a.m. There was no interim injunction or interlocutory injunction that had been filed. And I think that even if you look carefully at the substance of the suit filed by Mr. Dafemapo, in my respectful view, has no basis whatsoever on the approval processes for the new deputy ministers and new ministers of state whose names have been submitted to Parliament. Because the essence of the relief sought by Mr. Dafemapo is to challenge the reassignment of ministers who were serving or are still serving in President Akufo-Addo's government and whose respective portfolios have been relieved of them.
But at least he makes reference to the fact, Mr. Godfrey makes reference to the fact that if you could also listen
to Parliament for consideration as ministers.
After the appointment were terminated, at least from that communication we had from the presidency, that's the basis.
It's something that, it's fine. I mean, it raises a constitutional issue, and I think that the issue really is not genuine. And with all respect, I as the Attorney General will have no difficulty at all defending such what I consider to be a frivolous suit.
Okay.
But the most important point to note that it has no bearing whatsoever on the approval processes of persons who have been freshly nominated by the President and whose names have been duly submitted to Parliament in accordance with Article 78 Clause 1 as well as Article 79 Clause 1. The President has actually done the most constitutional thing, which is to submit names of persons he considers fit to be ministers for approval by Parliament in accordance with the Constitution. And that is sought to be halted. I mean, with all respect, it's very baffling, and I cannot understand this.
But some have said that's a tit for tat. This is important to the presidency and for the Speaker and some members of Parliament. This is also important to them, which is the LGBTQ bill. Well, we've read portions of your opinion. We've seen the letter also from the presidency. For the avoidance of doubt, the AG actually advised the president not to even accept the bill from Parliament because of the pending court cases?
Well, I think to start with, the first point you made was that it is tit for tat. That is most unfortunate in any democracy. And indeed, it is actually a very unhealthy thing for a thing to do, for a person to do when construing the constitution of a country. You don't construe the constitution of a country, the fundamental laws of the republic, in a manner as to suit your personal agenda and to say that it's tit for tat. When I deliver opinions to the president and to Parliament, I do so in complete good faith. And indeed, this morning, I have actually delivered an opinion, a letter to the Speaker of Parliament in good faith, drawing his attention to the inaccuracies in the statement that he made yesterday in Parliament, as well as the results of the search that I have conducted in the rest of the court.
Okay.
That showed clearly that indeed at the time I was making the statement, there was no application for interim or interlocutory injunction that had been filed.
But you haven't responded.
And I'm also praying that the Parliament then reconsiders its decision and proceeds to. Now, on the second point, I, as you would observe from my letter, set out the full facts and circumstances of the cases that had been served on me. And I made reference to the two reliefs that were made by or applied for by Mr. Richard Sky. The first relief was for an order to restrain the transmission of the relevant process, which is the bill in question, to the president. And the second one was also to restrain the president from assenting to the bill. I made reference to that in my letter. So I did not see what perhaps is wrong with the president making inferences based on a letter and proceeding in the manner that he did.
And that's the Attorney General Minister for Justice, Godfred Yeboah. So the question is, at the time the Speaker gave the directive and referred to an interlocutory injunction, there was no such thing. Is that the case, Kogo Asante?
Well, yes, at the time the Speaker of Parliament was speaking yesterday night, no motion for interlocutory injunction had been filed at the Supreme Court. And in fact, the search of the Attorney General bears that fact. But the Roxy Nelson had filed a writ of summons. And one of the reliefs he was seeking was interlocutory injunction. But of course, the Attorney General has argued that the bare writ of summons is not enough to stop anybody from acting. And he goes on to say that that suit is not properly considered as of then. But this morning, Roxy Nelson and his lawyers have now gone to the Supreme Court and have filed the specific substantive motion for interlocutory injunctions. A lot of this morning has been filed. But as of last night, when the Speaker of Parliament was purporting to rely on
that particular thing, there was no such thing before him.
Just the writ of summons, which had a one-liner relief item relating to that application.
All right, thank you very much. Kogo Asante is our parliamentary correspondent. Now, let's analyze this matter politically. And Dr. Asa Asante is a political scientist of the University of Ghana. Doctor, you're welcome to the pause here on Joy News. So this impasse clearly between the executive arm of government and the legislature, to what end should this go, and what can be done to bring some sanity within the body of politicking?
If you look at what's going on, the good news is that they've gone to the appropriate forum, the courts. So we'll hear from the courts. But what we are saying politically, it is not new to Parliament. I have been a reporter in Parliament, so sometimes you understand some of these things. But the good news about parliamentarians is that at the end of the day, they come together and forge ahead and work for their country. That is in no doubt. So I know that when things settle, they will come back and work.
There are a few issues, though, that we need to deal with, even as the big men find a way to resolve whatever differences they have. Now, the Speaker decided that based on a writ that had been filed in court, he was not going to allow the House to consider a report from the appointment committee recommending the approval and subsequent direction to the president to swear in the newly appointed ministers and deputy ministers of state. Now, what has happened is that, for example, for the information ministry, there is no substantive minister, there is no substantive deputy minister, so that ministry has nobody leading it. I mean, if we look at it the way it is. Health ministry, some other ministers were asked to oversee activities there. I mean, to what extent is this vacuum, if you like, going to affect the governance of this nation? Critically, the information minister, which has no substantive minister and deputy leading it as of now.
You see, whilst we wait for the court, definitely, the ministries exist to take, be able to hold the fort, if you like, until such a time that everything is solved and then they get there. So it's not going to be that, nothing will work. No, they will wait for the courts, and then in the meantime, what they do at the ministries will go on. When everything is said and done, then the court speaks, and the Parliament also going to continue the work. They get somebody to be there as a minister. So even if you don't have the ministers now, the ministries will work.
Yeah. So you don't expect this to affect, government business, especially at the ministries, without substantive ministers going forward?
You see, the law exists to make life better for us. So anytime people go to court, me as a student of politics, I am happy because they've chosen the right path. As soon as the court speaks, we are all directed as to the direction to go. In the interim, the ministries exist and then they do what they are doing at all times. Sometimes you know that even some ministers, sometimes we have problems that one ministry or another, there is no minister. But government business keep going. It's part of the process. Whenever there are difficulties, our last place we run to is the court. And when we go, the court speaks. We obey and we move on. It makes the system better. Right. So the ministries are not going to die. No, they are moving on.
Right. Let me ask a final question so that I can let you go. And obviously, as a former parliamentary correspondent, I'm sure you are very much aware of the standing orders and the provision that says that some members of parliament, in this about 94, can file a petition that will compel the speaker to convey parliament to sit and to consider any urgent matter that may come before it. Do you see this as a tool that a majority or the government should use, or you think that there should be more consensus building on this matter to resolve it in a way that will benefit the Ghanaian?
You see, what Parliament has done over the years is that whenever they go through difficult times,
right?
But at the end of the day, what gladdens my heart is that they come together and then forge ahead. So I know that, yes, now there are problems here and there, but when all is said and done, they will come back because Parliament always, irrespective of the fact that, or in spite of sometimes their positions and all that, they always want to make sure that they do their business. So I know that when all the court processes are done, they'll come back and then work. That is my hope. All
right, thank you very much. Dr. Asante is a political scientist with the University of Ghana. And this is a pause here on Joy News with me, Elton Brobe. Now we'll take a short break. When we return, we want to talk about some industrial action, and then we'll speak to the Chief Executive Officer of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and to ask him what they are doing to resolve this matter. Stay with us. Welcome back to the pause here on Joy News, and we have that conversation with the Chief Executive of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission coming up pretty shortly, and then we're going to get all the assurance that we need as teachers embark on this industrial action. But in a prime area nestled between Accra's iconic landmarks, Independence Square and the burial place of former President John Evans Atta Mills, Asundwe Park, a distressing reality has emerged. This area, situated on the road leading to the former seat of government, the Christianborg Castle, or the Osu Castle, has transformed into a dumping ground and a hub for open defecation. During a series dubbed Filth Exhibition, Maxwell Agbagba brings us a report on this alarming situation.
The Independence Square and the Independence Arch, a reminder of Ghana's freedom from her colonial masters. Right beside it is the piece of land which also serves as a reminder to some unpatriotic citizens of their freedom. Freedom to openly defecate and dump their garbage.
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom, toils of the brave.
It seems the authorities have found the perfect spot for a sit-down protest against waste management. Or perhaps it is the city authorities' way of saying, Happy Independence Day, enjoy the sights and smell. Right here, we confronted a man who had just finished defecating on this hallowed ground.
So why were you defecating here?
Through the defecating is that lowland,
they've been shitting there for a long time. And it was like Bola, the rubbish dam. Some people are shitting in this water. But me, I know that some are using it to wash. I will not do that.
Why were you defecating?
Defecating here, if you are defecating here, those who are living around here, they will not call it to be a crime because it's a lowland. And very soon, you will see people who can bring this in. It was even deep down. Because of the rubbish dam, you see that it is filling.
Do you think it's bad, especially because this place is very close to the Independence Square, and just right behind the walls of the Independence Square, you are defecating? You don't think it's wrong?
I know that it's wrong, but here like this, it's very, very wrong. I know that here too is not right. In case they are to do here, clear here, no, it's not right. But the way it was bush, if you are here, no one will call it to be a crime. That's why we are shitting there. So that's why we are defecating there. But here, if you see a person shitting here, you know that that person is not normal.
For citizens who come here, it is to celebrate our nation's freedom. But what about our freedom from this mess? Perhaps city authorities want to give tourists and patrons a 360 independence celebration. After watching the display and exhibition of our culture and all that we stand for at the Black Star Square, you can come here for a part 2. This time, a filth exhibition. Chata Winfred Annan is a resident.
Immediately when they remove the presidency from the Usu Castle to the Jubilee House, that is fine. Immediately they could have brought the national security people to the Usu Castle, so that they can keep this place clean. But now, see, if you see the rubbish and where the people go to toilet here, it's very bad. There's nothing going on here. They said nobody should come to the beach, and people are going to private all over. If you turn and look at where the rubbish are, you see everything. So for me, it's terrible. Where the cast Independence Square is, and where they go to private, I mean, it's not good. And so they're supposed to do something about it. And so if you look at the Asomdwe Park and where the people are going to the private, my man, the big EDSS should do something about it.
Let's celebrate independence in every sense of the word, from freedom to cleanliness. Join us in our mission to turn this filth exhibition into a showcase of cleanliness and pride. Maxwell Agbagba for Joy News.
And we'll also stay with matters relating to the environment because today is International Day of Forests. Today and around the world, there's commemoration taking place under the theme Forest and Innovation, New Solutions for a Better World. In Ghana, management of our forest resources has been one of the biggest issues for government, academia, civil society groups, and the everyday Ghanaian because of the importance of forests to our survival as a people. To help protect the forest, there have been several demands on government by the civil society groups, Tropembos. Now, it is asking government to do certain things, and very soon we'll have some of the things that they are demanding government to do on your screens as we engage them more. And this is exactly what they are asking government to do. Government, as a matter of urgency, should listen and adhere to calls for the repeal of the Environmental Protection Regulation, that's LI 2462. The LI in its current form and intent means no forest reserve in Ghana is exempted from mining if deemed to be in the interest of the state as determined by the president. Now, this implies that even Ghana's most sensitive forest areas protected by acts of parliament and international conventions that Ghana has signed on to can no longer be deemed secured as such counterproductive to innovative solutions to manage such areas. Now, Tropembos is also demanding the immediate reversal of the directive from the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abujinapop to the Forestry Commission to grant permits to timber harvesting companies to log in global significant biodiversity areas. So what exactly and how exactly are they hoping to get their voices heard? Let's have a conversation on this. Joining us now is Project Manager Tropembos Ghana, Boachi Chumasi Ankra, and he joins me via Zoom. Mr. Ankra, we celebrate Forest Day around the world. In Ghana, the issue of illegal mining, the existence of it means that we need to do more to protect our forests. From where you sit, and as a watcher of this industry. Are our forests safe as we celebrate the day? Mr. Chumazi, if you can unmute for me. Well, we don't seem to have him. We don't seem to have him yet. When we do, we'll bring him on. We are talking about the International Forest Day, which is today. And Ghana, the issue of illegal mining continues to be the main concern for a lot of people who are concerned about the manner in which we are witnessing the depletion of our forest. So, Mr. Chumasi, welcome to the Pulse, and it's good to have you as we celebrate International Forest Day. And you've made some demands on government. But before we talk about the demands, I mean, as a watcher of this industry, you look at our forests, you observe it. Are we in danger, or you say that, I mean, because of government intervention, we've done some kind of work to protect the forest reserve? First, let's talk about the state of our forests.
All right, thank you for your question. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Sure. So I think that we are not in the best of states if we are talking about our forest because of certain actions that are happening. One key of it is what you have mentioned, the illegal mining, which is commonly called galamsey. Government has done some things or taken certain actions, but the actions are not enough because we see day in and day out that our forests keep going and being destroyed, even though governments have indicated certain actions that are being done. So for me, I think what needs to be done, and if just what we have done and what we are doing is to be the case, then actually in a few years we will lose all the forest that we have in Ghana now.
But again, you know that you know very well that we cannot do away with the forest as well because of its natural resources potential and the fact that it is a revenue drive for the nation: gold, timber, and other resources. So how do we strike a fine balance between protecting the forest and also exploiting it for national gain?
Okay, thank you very much. From time immemorial, from the time that we have had the forest in Ghana, we have extracted minerals and have extracted timber, but in our current arrangement, it is very destructive. Certain things that are happening now are very destructive. Now, let me say that we are not against mining, for instance, but we are against mining which doesn't show responsibility to environmental. Already we extract timber. There is what we call sustainable timber harvesting, which is being done by the Forestry Commission. So that is fine. But when we come to gold mining and other minerals mining, where they are supposed to be undertaken in forest reserves, the administrative arrangement that has been in existence was that these would be undertaken in areas we call production forest reserves, and that these are reserves that are already given out or are already subject to production in terms of timber harvesting. And so if we are going to do other extractive activities there, then there is no much, or in terms of damage to ecological system, it is really minimal. But here is the case that we are actually veering off into areas which are ecologically sensitive, which we call globally significant biodiversity areas, which is very dangerous because we knew, and the country knew, that these areas are ecologically sensitive, and that's why by arrangement we have decided to protect these areas from every form of extraction, whether timber harvesting or minerals extraction. And so there is no reason or excuse for government to now turn around and give these areas and subject them to timber harvesting and then gold extraction. And that is why we think that the current arrangement that the government is putting up, especially embedded in Environmental Protection Regulation LI 2262, is very it's not respecting the tenets of environmental protection and sustainability.
And you want the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, you want some kind of a hold put on him in terms of his powers to grant license for timber felling in some of our forest reserves?
Yes, already there are places that are that forest timber harvesting is allowed. But here is the case that the minister had in his letter that we cited has cited certain reasons, including the fact that a particular company is employing a number of people and all that, and giving instruction to the Forestry Commission to actually go ahead and allow a particular company the harvesting right in globally significant biodiversity area. And so in order to pay themselves of the guilt, would rather reclassify or declassify the area as globally significant biodiversity area. And so that is why we're saying that, yes, it could be other places, production forest reserve, but for a globally significant biodiversity area, which all Ghanaians have decided to reserve and protect because of their ecological sensitivity, it is very bad and against the tenets of sustainability and conservation for a government or the minister to allow and to instruct the Forestry Commission to give harvesting rights to a particular company, which is not acceptable. And in any case, let me mention that even if the place was okay for harvesting, there is a process that a competitive bidding process that the whole procedure should have been taken through, which wasn't done. But this one is just by an administrative letter being instructing the Forestry Commission to take such an action.
But Mr. Chumasi, you've been following the story of the rosewood and the fact that even though it's banned, I mean, there's been several reports suggesting that people still are harvesting it and exporting it as well. So beyond the laws that protect our forests, I think the issue here is about enforcement of these bylaws. Where are we getting it wrong?
I think that you are right, but that we have the laws and sometimes it's the lapses in terms of enforcement. I think that we are getting it wrong in terms of regulation. The institutions that have been mandated to regulate the harvesting, to manage the forest, I think that there are some weaknesses that is allowing the leakage of these actions. Sometimes there are deliberate actions by certain entities in these institutions, and I think that when communities, when civil society, when citizens raise alarms and raise red flags about some of these actions and report them, I think that the institution responsible for protection of our forests should take action and not really be just lay back about the whole thing, because it also discourages citizens from supporting forest protection. So I think that what is wrong basically is about the fact that the regulator is actually not doing so much to protect the forest, and especially in the rosewood situation. Let's consider this, that rosewood is not really abundant at the port areas. So mostly are found at the northern side and northern parts of Ghana. So consider the kind of security checks that are on our way, that these goods are passed through to the port and still get exported, even though there is a ban. That means that there are institutions that are complicit in these actions.
I mean, before I let you go briefly, of course, as we talk about timber, there's also the other issue of mining, also in some of these forest reserves. I mean, licenses continue to be granted for people to undertake exploration and other things, and sometimes they go beyond the mandate given them by these licenses. Away from timber, and let's talk about gold. Very crucial resources for the country as well. As we celebrate this day, there have been several interventions to deal with illegal mining. It is still ongoing. Somebody has described the Western region as the capital of illegal mining. As we observe this day, what do you suggest as we can do more to protect our forest cover from illegal mining, especially?
Thank you very much. I think that these forests are under the care of certain institutions in Ghana. And what I would say is that I will urge them to be really resolute and strict in their monitoring actions of these forest reserves at the national level or at the policy level. I would suggest that, and I would call on government to actually have a strict arrangement and follow the arrangement to commit mining only to production forest reserves and not all forest reserves. And so, in that sense, we would minimize the destruction that we are actually causing to our forests. And that saying that, it means that I'm talking about the legal mining. But for illegal mining, I think that it is no in our forest reserve and no other place, whether for rivers or any place.
All right.
And they should take charge of the situation and stop it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chumasi, for your time this afternoon. This is the Pulse on Joy News. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll also look at our health. And of course, we'll also take a look at the industrial action backed upon by the teacher unions. My understanding is that they are held up in a meeting right now and try to resolve this matter once and for all. We'll have the very latest for you on that when we return. Welcome back to the show, and in this hour, let's talk about tuberculosis, simply referred to as TB. It is an infection disease that most often affects the lungs. It is caused by a type of bacteria that spread through the air when infected people cough, sneeze, or spit. Now, the World Health Organization estimates that 1 out of every 4 persons you meet anywhere in the world has at one point contracted TB. That's quite scary. But not all exhibit symptoms. It is a major public health threat in Ghana and globally. It is one of the top 10 causes of death according to the WHO, and it's estimated that each day nearly 3,500 people die from TB across the world. TB Day 2024 will be commemorated on Sunday, 24th March, under the theme, Yes, We Can, in the studio to help us understand TB better and to help us with the knowledge to react against it is Dr. Rita Patricia Frimpong. I'm your Deputy Programs Manager, the Ghana TB Control Program. Dr. Wanya, you're welcome to the Pulse on Joy News. So, I mean, I've met like 20, 30 people today. So that means,
yes.
I mean, every 4 that I met, one had or at some point had TB. And that's quite scary for me, looking at, I mean, the effects of it on the human body.
Yes, so when we say that 1 in 4 people that you meet has had TB infection, it doesn't mean they have the TB disease.
Okay.
You know, the organism is such that once it gets into your lungs, it doesn't put you down at the moment.
Right.
It waits the time your immunity is very low, then it also starts manifesting. So though you may be harboring the bacteria, you may not be showing any symptoms. That is why we say that 1 in every 4 at any point in time might have inhaled air that had the bacilli in it. So that is the meaning.
So maybe you may have had it, but because your immune system is strong, it was able to fight it. Good. Is that the case?
Yes.
All right. So I mean, is TB still a major health concern in Ghana?
It is. Most of the time, people think that it's an ancient disease, we have advanced,
right,
so we don't need to talk about it. Let me give you something simple. You know, in our health facilities, anybody who comes, we screen the person. So we ask you simple questions. Do you cough? Do you have a fever? Have you lost weight? Have you lost appetite? These questions seem to be everyday questions. Right. Yet, the people that we ask them, and they say yes, we take their sputum sample to the lab. And just last year, over 19,000 people in Ghana had TB.
19,000
19,000
across the country.
Yes. So it should tell you that the disease is still present with us, and we need to do all that we can to end it.
And this is even for those who came to be tested.
Good.
So it means that there may be a number, the number may be higher for those who've not been tested for TB.
Yes.
Because I know, for example, people cough, and their first, reaction would be to go to a pharmacy or a drugstore to get a cough mixture.
Yes. So the WHO estimates that in Ghana, per our population, there are 44,000 that have TB every year. So if we were able to diagnose 19,000, it means that we have about 25,000 people that we didn't get to. So now what happens to them? Okay. They are in our community. Some of them will die unnoticed. Others would infect other people. So that is how the disease keeps transmitting. So in this year that we are looking at, yes, we can end TB. We have added over-the-counter medical shops. We have added pharmacy shops to the work that we are doing, because we realize that many people will first visit these points before they come to the facility. And if the cough is not really bothering them, they will not even enter the health facility. So we are working at over-the-counter medical shops and also at the pharmacy shop, where you'll be screened when you come there to get a cough mixture, and then your sample will be taken there to the facility. You don't even need to bother going to the facility, and we will get your results too.
So is it related to the quality of air or from other sources?
TB is not related to quality of air. The organisms are so minute, you may not see them. So even in a room that you think, oh, I'm in an air-conditioned room, this place is neat, it's cleaned, the organism just needs the air, and it suspends in the air. Usually, it will not drop on a surface that you say, oh, I'm cleaning the surface, so it's there. It will keep suspending in the air after some time before it settles on the surface. So everywhere that you are, whether the air is clean, whether the air is polluted, the TB bacilli is. And let me say this. Many people travel from Ghana, they go to US, they go to UK, and then at the health facility, we get a call. There is a Ghanaian who went to this country, he has TB and he wants to come back home. People think that when you go there, oh, it's a neat place, so there is no TB. But TB is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you are in Ghana or you are in the US.
Everywhere.
You can be, yes. And so, I mean, have we attached enough seriousness to this as a nation?
Yes, a lot of seriousness. When you come to the National TB Control Program, you have all the cadre of staff that work in a health facility at the program level. So you see, although we are not sitting in the clinic, we are there, we are teaching our colleagues, we are monitoring what they are doing, and government is also doing its best to provide us with resources, although they are not enough. So, I mean, I'll use this, your platform, to also lobby for more equipment. We use the GeneXpert machine to diagnose TB. As a country, we have 261 districts. But the GeneXpert machines we have are 201. It tells you that not every district has the machine.
But is it even distributed evenly? I mean, the 200.
Of course, I mean, definitely.
I'm sure you have more in Accra and Kumasi.
More in Greater Accra and Ashanti region. Yes. So we need more of the diagnostic equipment so that anybody that goes to a health facility wouldn't have to go to another place for the test to be done. So what we are doing is that another level of seriousness we've attached is that if you attend a facility where they don't have the diagnostic machine, the sputum sample is transported to the other facility that can conduct this diagnosis. Then we get your results.
But again, the issue about the seriousness, beyond government intervention, the individual, I mean, why should I pay so much attention to TB? Is this something that can easily kill me?
TB is one of the top 10 killers. You know, when COVID came, everybody was running away. But after COVID, TB is the #1 cause of death. It even kills more people than HIV. And for many people, as for coughing, people will not cover their mouth when they are coughing. They will not cough in the elbow. Now that we are even not wearing masks, we just cough anywhere. But what we need to advocate and tell everyone is that anytime you have a cough, please, now, mask wearing is not anything new to us. Please wear your mask. And again, if you don't have your mask, cough into your elbow or cough into a handkerchief, a tissue, and dispose it off. When you don't feel well, you have a cough, you have a fever, please visit a health.
I was just coming to ask about the symptoms to look out for.
The
so
TB symptoms.
You are alive to your responsibilities.
Yes, it's a myriad of symptoms.
Okay.
So, I mean, the predominant ones is cough, we have fever, cough of any duration. At first, we were restricting ourselves to 2 weeks and realized that many of the people that have TB may not have been coughing for that 2 weeks duration. So, fever, chest pain, weight loss, difficulty in breathing. And for the young children, you would see that the child is failing to thrive. That means that a child at 3 months, at 6 months, that should be sitting, at 9 months that should be crawling or taking the first steps, that child is not even standing. So that child is failing to thrive. The child is not gaining weight as it should. So these are the symptoms that we look out for.
And that could be TB.
Yes, TB causes that. And one of the major things is that a lot of people will complain of back pain, getting all manner of analgesics one after the other. TB can affect the bone, okay? There are people that TB also affect their brain and they become unconscious. So sometimes some headaches, it may not just be a normal headache. That is why I want everybody to visit the health facility when you are not well so that you'll be properly taken care of.
So the observation is on the 20...
On the 24th.
On the 24th.
But this year, because 24th falls on a Sunday,
right,
everybody wants to either go to church or attend a party here or there. We are celebrating the day on Friday, 22nd of March.
And that's tomorrow?
Yes, in the Eastern region, the Jubilee Park. Okay. So we would be there. We'll be supported by government. We'll be supported by our chiefs. We'll be supported by market women, school children, teachers. Everybody is coming to join us to celebrate this important occasion.
And what's the national call as you celebrate this the day tomorrow?
This year, the theme is Yes, We Can End TB. This theme is to bring out some hope in us that as individuals, with a little effort, we can end TB by covering our mouth when we are coughing and not stigmatizing those who have TB. When we stigmatize people, they are afraid to come out.
Right.
And they are unable to tell their family members, I have TB. You know, when you have TB, we come to your family, and then those who are closer to you, we also screen them for TB. Those who do not have, we put them on a medication. It's called a TB preventive treatment. So yes, we can end TB. Yes, TB is curable.
And last time I checked, it was free too.
Oh, it is free. So when we say yes, we can end TB, the one who has the TB disease, you can also say that.
Of course.
Yes, I can end TB. The family member would say, yes, I can end TB because I'm taking TB preventive treatment. And for Joy FM, oh, yes, you can end TB. Giving us this platform, Joy TV, all your stations, this week we have been moving from one station to the other. That is what we are all doing to end TB.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Manyo, for coming through. And the national observation is tomorrow, the Koforidua Jubilee Park. That's where the national event is taking place. And the theme is, Yes, We Can. And that is what all of us will look forward to. Let's move away from TB and let's get into the classroom, because today classrooms have remained empty across Ghana's public schools, with learners wandering aimlessly and, teachers observing helplessly as well. Their teachers have been on strike, and this is the situation.
One, delay with negotiation of the new collective agreement. It will interest you to know that following the expiration of the collective agreement in 2023, negotiation of the new collective agreement should have completed on or before February 29 this year. But this has not been so. Thus, the new collective agreement stands unnegotiated, and we raised this concern in our letter to the Director General of GES dated 29 February 2024, and also informed the National Labour Commission accordingly. As we gathered here now, the issue is still outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, 2, scheme of service. We have also drawn the attention of the Director General of the GES to the fact that the Ghana Education Service does not have a functional scheme of service for teachers. That's a much cogent and appropriate one, which takes care of all requirements in the teaching profession, needs to be developed for us. We have cried out over this to no avail. 3, equally important to the teachers are the following issues: the inability of government and the service to complete the distribution of the laptops to all teachers is of concern. The rampant changes of the school calendar without recourse to negotiation with the teacher unions is affecting the smooth operation of the service. Also, the blockade of teacher salaries by the Office of the Special Prosecutor without recourse to the laid-down procedures is a major worry. Ladies and gentlemen, our call to action. In the light of the above circumstances and given the delays and unfulfilled promises on the part of the employer and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and also threats from the rank and file of our members, we, the pre-tertiary teacher union, do stand with our members and hereby declare a nationwide industrial action effective today. We declare an industrial action effective today, Wednesday, 20th March 2024, to press home our demand. Thank you very much.
So this was yesterday. However, the Ghana Education Service has instructed all school heads to keep the schools open until further notice. But in the schools, children were seen loitering about aimlessly. My colleague Zuleiha Nuhu visited some schools, including the Accra Newtown Experimental Basic School, the Nima cluster of schools, and Newtown Experimental Basic School, and interacted with some of them.
Press statement released on Wednesday, March 20th, the teacher unions said they were embarking on the industrial action due to the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service's delay in addressing their conditions of service. The unions expressed disappointment that the negotiations of a new collective agreement, which was expected to end by February 29, 2024, remains unresolved. They also pointed out the absence of a functional scheme of service for teachers within the Ghana Education Service and criticized the incomplete distribution of laptops to teachers by the government and the GES. Despite appeals from the Ghana Education Service for head teachers to prioritize the safety and well-being of students. Our visit to the Newtown Experimental Basic School in Accra, Nima cluster of schools, and Accra Newtown Experimental Basic School revealed empty classrooms with students loitering without proper supervision. Here are some of them.
We are not doing anything important in the clubs because teachers are on strike. So we are just playing and doing whatever we need in the class. So we don't do anything important.
The reason why I'm playing is because my teacher, they are on strike. I want them to come and teach us.
So the latest on this matter is that the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission called a meeting this afternoon. So all the interest parties, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAGRAT, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Finance, they are all locked up in a meeting with the aim of finding a solution for this impasse. The teachers have made it clear that their conditions of service expired last year and government has not done enough to renegotiate with them. The Fair Wages Salaries Commission this afternoon announced that they've met 10 out of the 16 demands of the teachers and therefore express their disappointment with the decision taken by the teacher unions to embark on a strike. We're monitoring this meeting, the reason why Mr. Benasante is unable to join us this afternoon for a conversation. When the meeting is over, we'll tell you the outcome. But let's come back to health, because 3 West African countries, Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are teaming up to combat non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes, mental health disorders, among others, which make up NCDs, rising in West Africa and requiring urgent steps to address it before it becomes a full-blown crisis. In Burkina Faso, 1 in 5 adults are affected by poorly controlled hypertension. In Ghana, claims for basic anti-hypertensive medicines are within 10 most frequently prescribed reimbursed under the National Health Insurance Scheme. So to address this, health experts from the 3 countries have teamed up to provide some interventions. They are currently in Accra to fashion out strategies for this. In the studio with me this afternoon is Professor Irene Ajipon, public health specialist with the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons, and Dodowa Health Research Center. She specializes in health policy and system. Also, Professor Tulip Bekosi, did I get it right? Thank you so much. Is a professor of global health policy in the Department of Global Health and Development. His expertise covers health policies, health system, and capacity building. And we are going to have a discussion on this very important matter. Non-communicable diseases. And this week I've had time to talk a lot about hypertension. I mean, on Tuesday, I had a discussion about diabetes, end-stage diabetes, one of the contributory factors. So hypertension is a very, very important subject, and that is one of the focus. But how dangerous is it, especially for these three West African countries? Let me start with Professor Irene.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and good afternoon to your listeners. Yes, it is a problem for us, and especially so because the numbers are increasing. And it's also a worry for us because both hypertension and diabetes are diseases that we call ambulatory care sensitive.
Break it down for me.
Yes, ambulatory care means walk-in outpatient care.
Okay.
So when a disease is sensitive to walk-in outpatient, it means if you have very good primary care, you reduce the complications and the deaths. The person can lead a healthy, normal life. So, but our primary healthcare systems are not adequately focused on this rising problem.
And Seb, I mean, the bottom line is the fact that a lot of people walk around without knowing their health status. And that for me is key. So how are you dealing with this?
Well, I think the key is for people to be aware of these conditions. And in our research, we're actually kind of calling them not diseases, but conditions.
All right.
These are longer term issues that people live with, people go to work with, people grow up and grow old with. So from that perspective, it's important to just be aware and manage those appropriately.
But is there a relationship between, for example, hypertension, diabetes, and the other non-communicable diseases?
Well, many non-communicable diseases, they're interrelated. For example, research clearly shows that many patients who are suffering from diabetes or hypertension, they also exposed to some of the mental health conditions, in particular stress, anxiety. So this issue of what we call the comorbidity is really important, and that also paves kind of the agenda for us not to treat each individual disease or condition in isolation, but look at the person as a whole and promote more holistic care.
So for the three countries, what is the strategy you've put together to combat this? Let me come to both.
Okay, so what we have been trying to do is that we think the best solutions come from the people who live with the problem. So over the last 15 months, we've been doing research in the three countries, and we've been reviewing the literature, trying to understand what are the issues, what are the drivers, what are the triggers. And now we've synthesized all that evidence. But instead of then sitting down by ourselves and then coming up to tell everybody this is what you should do, we are now starting what we call co-production. That's we are sitting down with stakeholders, engaging them in discussion and dialogue. Here is the issue, here is what we have found. If you have understood us, looking at yourself, looking at your community, what are the solutions that will work for you in context?
Perhaps we can even talk about the drivers first.
Yes.
So if somebody is watching and some of these symptoms are what the person is seeing, then you can take immediate steps. So the research, in terms of the drivers, what did the research find?
Okay, so I'll use a simple diagram that we have constructed and tried to use lay language.
Sure.
So we've kind of clustered the drivers into what we call contextual or macro level drivers, health and other systems, health systems, non-health systems, and then community, household, and individual. And we point out the fact that they don't work in isolation. Let me use an example. Let's say something like the community in which you live. And this is all coming from the research evidence. From the people in urban communities, some of them knew about that you should exercise, eat well. But the problem they pose to us is that there are no pavements on the road in my neighborhood.
For them to exercise?
To walk, just to walk.
Okay.
Or even if there's a pavement, the motorbikes and the bicycles are competing with me for the pavement. I go for a walk to prevent hypertension and diabetes. I may die from a road traffic accident, so I just don't go. So something like this it's a contextual factor, but it's also other systems, roads and transport. So you kind of need to look at these factors together. So I've given an example. Another example of contextual factors, our colleagues in Niger were saying, for example, that the coup and the matters arising has affected health.
Because they are mostly home and they are unable to have access to health facilities.
The borders were closed. It affected, medicines, things like that. Some of the insecurity in the Sahel means we can't even reach those. Again, it's a contextual factor, but it's affecting health. Right. And then if you come to the health systems factors, across all the 3 countries, the issue came up if people have to pay out of pocket for service, especially for very poor people, they are just not going to use it.
They don't have insurance as well.
They don't have insurance. They are going to wait till they get a stroke. Then it's too late. And then the other interesting thing that came out is that in Niger, there's no health insurance. So they were saying we need health insurance.
So for them, it's a cash and carry system.
It's purely cash and carry. But then Burkina Faso also said, we actually have insurance, but hypertension and diabetes are not in our benefit package. So for these conditions, it's still cash and carry. Then in Ghana, we said we have health insurance, and these conditions are in our benefit package. But some of the implementation arrangements means that some patients were saying we don't have access. We don't have access because we go to the facility and they tell us, I've stocked out of your medicine because I haven't been paid by NHS. So all 3 countries have different problems to solve related to out-of-pocket fees and so on and so forth.
So how are you working around these challenges that you have identified?
Well, we're involved in a 5-year program. So we are reaching this stage, the first of the 3 stages, during which we have analyzed the problems, the drivers of the NCD crisis in 3 countries. And what we're reaching is the second stage of the co-production, which Professor Ejipong has just mentioned. So when we engage with key stakeholders, policymakers, communities, health workers, to actually put the problems in front of them and give them an opportunity to actually come up with solutions. And then in the 3rd stage, we will implement those interventions and we'll evaluate effectiveness of those actions.
Right. So, Prof, for example, Niger and Burkina Faso, where they have issues of, access to healthcare, and they are facing financial difficulties. Some they have a health insurance card, but it's not covered. Some it doesn't exist at all. And you have poor people who are struggling to make ends meet. So what is the recommendation for such governments or health institutions or policymakers in terms of addressing this matter?
Okay, so again, like I said, we have thought through, we have some ideas, but at this point, we really wanted to avoid saying you must do A, B, C, because what happens is that people will think, the researchers have said it. But we really want to hear from them. And if I can just use an example from previous work. Many years ago, I was evaluating health programs in Upper West and went to this very poor village. And they said part of our health problem is our poverty problem. And an NGO came to help us improve our livelihoods. And we said, what happened? They said, well, they didn't ask us. They just showed us how to make, I think, both float and tie-dye, and said if we sell it, we'll make money. So we learned and we made it, but nobody in this village wants to buy buffaloes, and nobody wears tie-dye. So we are back at square one. So then our next question was, okay, now let's ask you, how would you have solved this problem?
Right.
They said, we are farmers. Our fathers were farmers, our grandfathers. We like farming. Can you give us irrigation? Can you give us agricultural extension workers? And I'm using it to illustrate why we are not trying to tell people at this stage. We are kind of asking people, talk to us. You've heard the problem. What do you think? That's the way we are going about it right now.
But would you say that there are more people in danger of slipping into end stage, for example, hypertension, diabetes, and other opportunistic diseases that come with it?
Of course, these are the real dangers, particularly if the earlier stages of those conditions are not properly diagnosed. And it is important to have robust systems of screening, identifying the problems early on before they escalate into something a bit more major and less manageable. And hypertension and diabetes are not always working in isolation. We talked about them being kind of also coexisting with some of the mental health conditions and some of the others. So it is important not only to diagnose them early as possible, but also to identify the associated conditions as a package rather than kind of treating each condition in isolation.
But Prof, what is the situation in Ghana? What is the Ghana story?
The Ghana story is similar, and if I come back to what we think, because, for example, I think Professor Mezov mentioned the fact that it's known from the literature, we observed it in our study, that when people are living with chronic conditions, in fact, the levels of depression and anxiety can be high.
Right.
So, for example, one of the questions we are asking and saying, think about it, why is it that in the health system, it is not possible that at every hypertension and diabetes clinic, you screen for stress, anxiety, depression, so that you catch people who are stressed out by their condition early. Because once they get into the stress, anxiety, depression, they may even stop taking their medicines, which then makes the condition worse, and it's a whole. So that's the kind of thinking that we are doing now.
And how is it going? Is it receiving the needed attention?
Oh, we think as we talk to stakeholders, it will. Just like we are here today talking to you, the first step is to get people aware and talking about the issue. Because one of the big problems we found is that NCD have been on the margins. It's not central. No, we are worried about malaria and TB and COVID and things like that. We felt NCDs are the problems of the rich.
Right.
It's not that way anymore. The bulk of NCDs are now in the lower middle income countries.
You have people very young age, contracting.
Very young age. Sometimes you are surprised, 40 years a stroke, why on earth? But the problem has caught up with us.
And mostly also it's about lifestyle.
Some of it. Some of it is about lifestyle, but some of it is also about enabling a healthy lifestyle. Like the example I gave in urban areas. These people we talked to knew they should exercise. But their question is, will my exercising make me die rather than so I'll sit at home? It's an enabling environment.
So Prof, is this your expectation that after all this is said and that we expect policymakers to take your report and implement them?
Well, it's not as simple as that, as we all know, because researchers can always come up with wonderful ideas, but the policymakers, they're often under immense pressure to use fairly limited resources for the public need. But what we're hoping to achieve is, first of all, to raise awareness of the NCDs in the 3 countries. Secondly, to actually kind of advocate for real change. And the real change doesn't always come from the policymakers. The real change will actually come from people, because people often underestimate their power and agency in actually using the specific type of services, engaging with kind of healthier lifestyle choices, and actually avoiding those diseases to escalate into something major. Just to give you an example, I think one of the really strong findings that was coming across all 3 countries is related to escalation of the hypertension, diabetes, and associated mental health kind of conditions into something which is unmanageable and which is often subjected to a huge amount of stigma. And it's almost a vicious cycle. People are unable to actually engage with healthier choices because they feel that the society doesn't kind of treat them, or indeed kind of they're unable to engage with healthier choices. And what we would like to engage with is to actually reverse that cycle, to kind of break that cycle. But at the same time, I think policymakers are important, and to be fair, in all 3 countries, there are NCD policies. They're beautifully written documents. They're strongly kind of logically kind of flowing, appropriately kind of structured. But I think the implementation often kind of suffers just because people don't subscribe to those, or indeed health workers do not have the opportunity and means, such as resources, to actually implement those. So what we're trying to do is to intervene at all levels of this kind of multifaceted problem.
Right. Professor Ejapon, final words. So after the 3-day program, what do you expect going forward?
Going forward, we are going to continue what we are doing now, dialoguing with stakeholders at community level, at facility level, at national level, presenting these findings, discussing what solutions can work in context. Because the other thing is, we may have a perfect solution, but in context it may not work. So we really need to come to feasible solutions that work in context, despite the fact that you're a very poor country. For example, something can work. What can work given your situation? You may not be able to fly to Kumasi, you can't afford it, but you can still get to Kumasi by bicycle. It may be a little slower, but we'll get there.
All right, thank you so much for coming through. And we have been discussing non-communicable diseases, and there's an ongoing conference here in Accra between Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and the outcome they hoped that policymakers and those in this space will take it up and then deal with this matter head on, so that we can deal with these underlying issues. This is a pause here on Joy. We'll take a short break. We'll be back. Welcome back to the pause here on Joy News. It's time for America Decides, and Dr. H.S. Kanku has all the gist. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So what do we have today?
Good to see you. So I'm just going to take it off.
Right.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to America Decides. Trump's two-time running mate and former Vice President Mike Pence has said that he would not be able to endorse him in the upcoming election. This is big news. This man was beside Donald Trump for his entire term of office as his number 2 man, his right-hand man. And today, a few years from being the right-hand man to Donald Trump, he says he cannot endorse the same man who he served in the Oval Office. Very big news breaking out there in the US. While acknowledging their differences, Mr. Pence indicated that January 6th was a major point of contention for both of them, Donald Trump and the nation, denouncing Trump for calling convicted January 6th rioters hostages. That was the kind of language he used. Pence has also said that he would not vote for Biden either, so holding out his vote between the two candidates. But that's not the only thing happening on that side of the world. There are a lot of legal issues going on. On the legal front, Trump has said that he has no money or he's not able to post bond for the recent convictions that he's had because no bonding company is willing to serve as a guarantor, well, believe that or not, for the $46 million settlement, including his damages. So the fact of the matter is that as a condition for mounting this appeal, Trump needed to find a bonding company willing to guarantee payment of that lump sum of money to cover the damages should he lose the appeal. So he's still appealing this, but if he loses it, he got to pay that money. Well, so people have been asking a lot, what are the consequences? If Trump is unable to pay for these damages by Monday, March 25th, here's what will happen. The New York State has every right to move in to seize some of his assets in order to defray the debt. This is huge. For somebody who has predicated or premised his entire or a majority of his political capital or reputation on his business acumen, on his money, and on his billionaire status, this is a huge indictment on that particular reputation. And the Democrats are making hay of this. So these are the two things at the forefront. Former Vice President Mike Pence, Donald Trump's own VP, not wanting or not willing to endorse him. and the legal hurdles that Donald Trump himself is facing and the problems he's having in posting that bond. So now that we've caught up with what is happening over there, we'll continue with what we started last week, talking about some of the major issues that are dominating the elections or the politics. People have always been concerned or worried about moving beyond the personalities. What are the issues that center in this election? So we'll now turn our attention. Some of those substantive issues are related to the upcoming election. There are issues about race, still, gender, sexism, and quite a number of issues. And we're on the ground. We had some interviews with experts on this subject, and we're bringing you those insights right away. So the first one was a question about, and this is something I've heard a lot from many Ghanaians, about why Donald Trump is so popular despite the many hurdles or challenges that he's supposed to face. So let's listen to the expert interview on Trump's attraction.
People outside America want to understand. Why is it that Donald Trump is continuing to get a lot of traction despite the really degraded language he uses sometimes?
Well, there's scholars written already dozens and dozens of books on this topic, and there are different theories about it. But I think the primary one is that he's capturing an alienation and an anger within the population. And even though you would think as someone who's reportedly wealthy that he would not do well with those who oftentimes struggle financially, but he brings that anger out, and it gives them a space they feel like they are being listened to, and he speaks to their grievances. And when you speak to their grievances, and there's been a lot done on the Trump voter, and before they were Trump voters, they were identified as Tea Party members, and back decades, but many of the historically rooted voters for Trump come from communities who are more rural. They come from communities that were, their generations date back to the enslavement periods, and many have historically felt alienated, and that all the attention was placed on, richer people, and then when there's so much attention during the civil rights movement on uplifting African Americans and Black people and Latina people, that they felt left out. And it's like, where's our programs that are going to bolster us? And there have been anti-poverty programs that have been designed to help more impoverished people, but oftentimes there is more attention on the historically marginalized. Some white poor people in the United States have not had as much attention paid to them.
So that was Professor Sean Perry Giles. She's at the University of Maryland. But we also spoke to a Harvard professor who added a bit of insight into why this popularity is growing. Donald Trump's popularity explained.
Why is he leading? So I think there are a couple of factors. Primarily, it's because he has an extremely loyal base of about 30% of the American electorate that is essentially unmovable. That's going to support him no matter what he says or does, or no matter what anybody else says or does. Probably, even if he's convicted of a crime, he'll still support him. No other candidate has that. Certainly not in the Republican primaries. So that alone, if you think about 30% of the public, is over half of the Republican electorate, the Republican primary electorate. So he has a built-in majority of the Republican primary electorate. And, that is really, fundamentally, you could say, the game was over before it started as a consequence. So that's important. When we get to the general election, why he's doing as well as he is, well, I think, there's been a lot of publicity around Joe Biden's age. And I think a lot of voters across parties are concerned about his age. I think some Democrats, especially younger progressive Democrats, are really upset about the Biden administration's policies around the war in Gaza right now. And I think that's reflected in recent polls to some extent. It's really early days in terms of the actual final election, so it's really hard to know whether the polls we're seeing right now will have very much meaning 6-8 months from now, because frankly most people aren't paying that much attention to the election yet. The early polls tend not to be especially reliable. But in terms of why is Trump doing so well in the Republican primaries, he's basically taken ownership essentially of the majority of the Republican primary electorate.
What makes him get that loyal base? What about him brings it up?
So he was able to appeal, starting in 2015 when he came on the scene, to a group of voters who were disaffected with racially progressive policies, with progressive immigration policies, feeling like these policies were sort of leaving them behind. Rising income inequality didn't help this. The sort of the loss of industries in places like West Virginia, for instance, as kind of coal shut down and employed fewer people. But the shift to clean energy being perceived as harming disproportionately folks working in the traditional energy industries. So factories shutting down in small towns, rural voters seeing their communities increasingly suffering from opioid addiction, lots of sort of feelings of economic and social struggle and hardship among kind of working class and poor communities, especially white working class and poor communities. Trump was able to tap directly into that resentment of social programs that were perceived, rightly or wrongly, as disproportionately benefiting, and I'll use air quotes for this, those people, the others. So a good example is the Affordable Care Act.
All right, so that was some explanation regarding why he is still popular despite the many challenges he's facing. But then there are also issues regarding females running for office, sexism, race and gender dynamics related to running for office. And there were some expert voices on female participation in politics.
In the conversation about Nikki Haley and how she's trying to negotiate this particular race. And so I want to find out, do you think female participation, well, we in Ghana see America as a leading democracy, but I know you have your own challenges, and I want to find out, do you think female participation in American politics is problematic? It's a challenge, it's a problem?
You mean women as political leaders?
Yes, women as political leaders.
Yes, absolutely. And we're a country that has never had a woman president, and, when Hillary Clinton won, she won the popular vote, but not the electoral college, which really is what matters. And then when that happened, then the response was, okay, we tried to elect a woman, that didn't work, so we want to make sure we nominate someone who will win. And that's how Joe Biden, was able to move up in 2020, even though there were 4 to 5 qualified women who were also running against him. That really didn't get traction.
Yeah.
So we'll delve deeper into some of these issues that are emerging in subsequent editions. Thanks for watching American Decides. My name is Eche Sikanku. Back to you, Elton.
And that's our show for today's edition of The Pulse. We shall be back tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. on Joy News. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com at 6 p.m. We have a thought leadership series on the empty place, a documentary on the senior high school feeding challenge. Stay tuned for that.